Hey, Brendan here from Blue Light, and for those of you who haven't seen any of my videos before, over the past 6 years or so I've been coaching and supporting people for the police recruitment process with a lot of success, I might add. By my best guesstimate, a good 3,000 plus people have been successful as a result of my support. Now, they might have been successful anyway, I don't know, but what I've been able to do is to give them the absolute confidence that they've got all the tools in the toolkit to enable them to ace each stage of the recruitment process. Now, I don't do this by giving them the marking guides or by giving them the actual questions that are going to be asked in the interviews, because frankly, I don't know. Well, actually, I do know, and more of that in a moment. But I don't want to know what's happened at the assessment centre or at their interview, because I think it'll cloud their judgment if I know that, and besides which it's unethical, because at the end of the assessment centre each candidate signs a confidentiality agreement and I would not want them to breach that. So what this video is about today is providing a rationale for some of the advice I've been giving my clients who are in the application process for joining the police. And what I've been advising them to do if they are white British or, if they're white British, is to indicate that they are white other or any other form of self-definition that they believe they fit into, which will enable them to access the positive action programs which some police forces are running. Actually, most police forces run them, but some of them are providing services which I think have overstepped the mark a little bit. But the College of Policing are aware of what's going on, because I've told them, I've provided with the information that I have, and I do believe at this moment in time they're dealing with it, although I did provide them with this information a good few months ago, and my contacts within forces that deal with this sort of thing haven't heard from them yet, so maybe it's a work in progress. But until then, I'm going to advise my clients to indicate that they are any other category of person, as long as they ethically believe they are within that category, so that they can access positive action. So in terms of white British or white other, well, to give you an example, I think I'm white other. I've got an Irish background. I've got relatives that can trace themselves back to all sorts of countries across Europe. So I'm a sort of mishmash of several different races and cultures, and here I am today, white other, whatever that means. So I'm quite happy to define myself as white other, in which case I'd access the positive action which most forces are providing. Now, I know some people who are providing positive action within forces, and it's being done very fairly and very legitimately, and it's not providing any kind of unfair advantage. And don't get me wrong, I'm an absolute believer in positive action. I really, really am a believer in positive action, because the one thing the police service needs to do is to ensure that it properly reflects the communities that it's a part of. Some people use the phrase serves. I kind of don't like that, because Robert Peel all those years ago talked about police officers just being citizens who are paid full time to carry out a role which is incumbent on all citizens in the interests of community welfare and existence. So it's not that you serve the community, you're a part of the community, and the police service should accurately reflect the community that it's a part of. Now, it could be chasing its tail there, because communities are ever changing and ever shifting. But at the moment, they're just way far away from what communities are. Most forces don't reflect anything like the communities that they're a part of. So I'm an absolute believer in this. I've also served for 3 years in an overseas force where I was the ethnic minority. And that was a bit of a learning curve, because I experienced levels of racism which my guess is some black minority officers have experienced in the past in the United Kingdom. So I know how much it can hurt. Being the only white officer on my shift, at times the racial abuse I received, this was back in the 80s and early 90s, was totally unacceptable, and people would have been dismissed from service if they'd done that sort of thing today. So I know how it feels. Anyway, here's my rationale, because I've got a lot of stick over this from Twitter, from a couple of chief officers, to various organisations representing minority groups, saying that I'm not helping. Well, I'm sorry, but I've got to help support my clients in a way that I believe is ethical to do so. And while some forces are going to continue playing games where they provide what I believe to be an unfair advantage, I will provide that advice to my clients. It's up to them whether they want to follow it. If they ethically believe they can self-define themselves as anything else other than white British, then my advice is for them to do so they can access positive action. So I've also been asked on Twitter, where's my evidence for all of this? Well, here it is, folks. I'm going to show you my evidence. Some of it's actually in writing and it comes from certain forces. So here's the first one. You can probably see which force this was from. This is the Met Police. This is one of the handouts they used to give to their positive action candidates. It's from a few years ago, this one. But from sort of triangulating the information I get from my clients about positive action, this one has an example competency question on it, which is, I believe, one of the actual questions that's asked at the assessment centre. And I know verbally more than several Met clients who've been told verbally, you should prepare for the following questions. And no surprises, they've all come back to say that those questions I was told to prepare for were exactly the questions that were at the assessment centre. So there's evidence bundle number one. Okay, number two. There's a force here which is handing out College of Policing official sensitive information that's provided for forces, and it has familiarisation materials for motivation and values questions. This is just one of the things that was handed out. It's got the sort of questions that will be asked at the interview, plus the script for the assessor. And going way beyond that, it's actually got, let's see, where is it? There you go, the marking guides. So, and these marking guides, because I do understand this world, I have a master's in education where I studied up to master's level in training and evaluation, and the area I focused on was personnel evaluation. So I'd like to think I know something about this, and for 2 years I sat on what's now the Skills for Justice Standards and Qualifications National Strategic Steering Group. That was way back in the early noughties, and a load of other experience. So I think I can, well, I don't think, I know I can look at these sort of marking guides and I can read them and map them out against the competency framework. My guess is that the marking guides on the day are going to be fairly similar. The thing is though, it's not going to help. These marking guides are in a language that most people don't understand. So if anything, you know, these are doing the rounds now publicly. They were handed out to candidates at positive action workshops, not helping at all. So I've had my clients ask for this and I've told them I'm not going to hand it to you. One, I'm not sure if I want to continue with that, what I think is an unethical course of action by that particular force. And two, it'll just confuse you. So no, I'm not handing this out. Actually, nor did I hand that out. These are things I've obtained from my clients who've passed it on to me because they've been told, you know, here's a handout. You know, once it's in the public domain, it's in the public domain. Okay, here's another little bit of evidence, because that's what people on Twitter have been asking me for. Where's the evidence? Well, here it is. So if you're going for the new Metropolitan Police Assessment Centre and you're not in one of the positive action categories, this is the briefing document you get. That's it. It's not much, is it, really? That's what you're told to expect at the assessment centre. So you're going to sit an interview, participate in some interactive exercises, complete 2 video-based exercises, undertake a written exercise and work with another candidate in a scenario-based virtual reality exercise. That's it. I'm okay with that, actually. I'm fine with that. You know, if you've got the inherent skills within you to be able to be a police officer, you should be able to manage any exercise within those categories. Now, bearing in mind this is a new assessment centre that the College of Policing and Met Police have put together over the past year or so, in answer to the College of Policing's own evaluation of their own assessment centre, which basically deemed it in a very long document, if I can sum it up, not really fit for purpose. So they got £450,000, I think it was, from the Police Innovation Fund to develop a new assessment centre. I do believe it's in the process of being evaluated at the moment, but no sooner have they done that than the Met Police have started running positive action workshops. Now, once again, I think positive action workshops are a great thing, as long as they're ethical, but you know, this one's got, how many pages? This one has 15 pages worth of guidance in there, including examples of what types of questions you may get asked at the interview. Now, we know what happened the last time the Met did that. They actually gave them the questions that were going to be asked. Now, I don't know if those questions in that bundle are the questions being asked, but, you know, that's 15 pages worth of advice. And you get to the workshop and you then have access to, let's see how many pages this is, 26 pages worth of guidance. 26 pages worth. Tells you all about each one of the exercises, and has these really interesting rating guides. So when I look at these rating guides, I look at them and think they look very much like marking guides to me. So this is for the interactive exercises. It's got things like confident opening, and then it's got some examples there that would probably fit within a scalar, manages the situation, and partially gathers information, considers all viewpoints. Communicates positively, informative and proactive problem solver. Now these all sit nicely within the competency and values framework, and the sort of indicators there would sit very nicely under a scalar type marking guide. So I don't know if that's what they've developed, but it's about £500,000 to develop something that's going to be fit for purpose. It's just my view, it's just my professional, I suppose, and personal view based on my experiences over decades actually, but I think this is overstepping the mark a little bit compared to this. So if you're white British, that's what you get. If you're tick any other category that gives you access to positive action, then you get all of that other support. I've got loads of little snippets that get fed to me from all sorts of forces around the country. But the one that I think is particularly disturbing is one force where I've got clients who've been told, you've passed the application process, but we can't give you a date for the assessment centre because we're filling all the dates currently with positive action candidates. Now, I think if I heard that, I'd be a bit upset. I wouldn't hold it against anyone who accessed positive action. Because, like I said, I'm a big believer in it. I think it's fair. But to give people on positive action programs a head start in terms of we're going to fill all the assessment centre dates that we have access to with positive action candidates, and we'll get in touch with you, a non-positive action candidate, once those places have been filled, and the clients that have been told that still haven't had places, and that's over a month ago now. Now there's a danger for them that that particular force could decide it's no longer got the funds to recruit anymore. And that's happened to more than several forces over the past few years. They've suddenly stopped recruitment and everyone in the recruitment process has been told, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to apply again when we reopen in the future. So they're all desperately worried because they know that happens. Among the circles, among my Facebook group, I've got over 4,000 people who are part of my Facebook support group, which, by the way, is policed very well by those people in it. It's very ethical in what they do. They will never reveal things like what happened at the role play or these are the questions that are going to be asked. And anyone who does ask that question gets very politely told that we can't divulge this information because it would be unfair and unethical to do so. But word spreads really quickly that certain forces have cancelled recruitment intakes, and that word gets around and it does tend to have a bit of a ripple effect. So certain forces, I'm not going to name them, are forces that a lot of my clients will avoid. They will apply to a neighbouring force, even if they live in that force area, because they know that that force has got previous for cancelling intakes in the past. Or once they've got through the whole process, they're just put in a holding bay. I've got clients now who have been waiting for over a year, having gone through the recruitment process for a place. And I don't know, but when all of this stuff around positive action is being battered around, what some of them suspect, they just suspect it, they don't know it and they don't believe it, they just suspect that it might be the case, is that those people who are in positive action schemes are getting put forward for any available places before them. I don't think this is healthy, folks. And my shout out here is for forces to get their act together and stop playing these games. If they're playing these games to achieve targets, then this is just going to backfire because it's not helping anyone. It really isn't helping anyone. I've been in the police for 3 decades. I know what the impact of targets is, even if you call them milestones or measures or performance monitoring standards, call it whatever you want. As soon as you ask a question of someone about how we're doing in respect of, have we met our target, milestone, whatever you want to call it, suddenly that will engender perverse behaviour because you will do everything you can to ensure that you hit that target, milestone, performance monitoring system, whatever it might be. The perverse behaviour that has gone on in the past has been well documented. The perverse behaviour that goes on now is being well documented by certain chief constables who have been out on patrol and have been critical of things like the NCRS standards because of the perverse behaviour that it produces. It's not victim-led, it's standard-led. But anyway, I digress. So the reason why I'm posting this is an explanation to everyone about my rationale. I'm just one person earning a living and helping people to succeed in a complicated recruitment process, and there's people doing this for every walk of life, for every career, so I'm not doing anything unusual here, but on behalf of my clients I've got to act for them if I can and provide them with the very best advice. So my advice stands. If you are someone who would have ticked themselves as white British in the past, if you believe it's ethical to do so, if you believe you can self-define as white other or white European, then go ahead and do so, because you might just be able to access that positive action that's going to give you the edge over others in the future. And if forces are prepared to do that, then my advice is you should be prepared to access it. Contentious, I know, and it could really mess up a lot of forces in terms of their positive action programs, because they're going to get lots of people on there who aren't the people who they're targeting, and it defeats the whole object. But if they're going to play the sort of games that I've just outlined here, then so be it, so be it. There's some forces out there, by the way, I need to mention this, who are behaving, in my belief, in my professional opinion, very ethically. And they even declare at the very beginning of the workshops that what we're going to go through today is all publicly available and will not give you any kind of advantage over someone who's not in this workshop. It will just provide you with a better understanding of what the process is. So all the information that they're being referred to is publicly available. What I've shown you, this document, actually all the others, they're not publicly available. Well, actually they are now, because they're doing the rounds, they've been handed out. The forces not think that people use things called copiers and scan things and email them out. So there you go. I've not. My 4,000 plus strong group does not have access to any of this stuff. So have you got any comments or thoughts on this? If you're watching this on Facebook, put it in the boxes below. If you're watching this on YouTube, likewise. Or if you want to email me about anything I've said here, the email address is info@bluelightconsultancy, all one word, .com. Until next time, I shall speak to you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye now.